Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this edition of Turnaround Marriage Live. We are excited to dive into a topic that is near to our hearts because it's something that we diagnose and talk to a lot of couples about. And tonight, if you're out there and you're married, obviously, and you're wondering, it seems like something is not quite right here. Things are not just flowing in the marriage the way they should. Or maybe you're also wondering behind the scenes, like you're just trying to figure out, diagnose like what is not working in our marriage. This is exactly the place you need to be this evening.
Yes. Hey, everybody. We are Scott and Rachel. We help committed Christian couples finally end the cycles of conflict, negativity, and disconnection and reclaim the love, passion, and playfulness that they once had. So if you're watching on Facebook, we'd love for you to give us a thumbs up and say hello. If you're on our coaching page or if you're in our group, we hope you can join our Turnaround Marriage group on Facebook. Or if you're watching on YouTube, we hope you give us a like and subscribe so we can spend more time together and you won't miss any of our content.
Right.
Our heart is to help and empower Christian couples to get a quick turnaround in their marriage. And so that's what we have the privilege of doing with our private clients every day, and also just to encourage all of you. And so, we're going to be talking about warning lights in the marriage tonight.
Yeah. And even before there's warning lights, I'd say it's like if you're driving a car and it starts running rough, or there's like a strange sound, or it's like curb thunk when you're trying to brake the car, like stop the car. It's like, in your gut, something's not right, but sometimes you can just choose to ignore it. Like you don't even need warning lights and things are not right. Mm-hmm. But let's talk about it for a moment. Like there is a good reason why when they engineered the cars that there are warning lights put on the dashboard for you.
Yes. And don't you get annoyed the first second they come on. You're like, what's going on again? Right. But those warning lights serve as a signal to say, hey, something's not right. So the worst thing we can do is to just go in there and just turn on warning light off and just ignore the sound, ignore the kerthunk, or whatever. And we recently bought a new to us car, 6 years old, and we spent a good chunk of money on it. And honestly, the very first week we had it home, those dang warning lights came on.
It was so frustrating.
It was like, what is wrong? I thought this car was certified. It's like, whatever. It was so frustrating. These lights came on. All I wanted to do was just hurry up and turn them off and just hope and pray that the car was going to be just fine. Yeah. But honestly, those warning lights are there for a reason. We're going to be talking about what those warning lights could look like in your marriage. But
yeah, exactly. And I would just stack on top and say it was like, even with the car being new and we knew we invested all, X money into the car, it was like, what are we going to do? Just ignore it, not get it fixed? Of course we had to. Fortunately, we had a little bit of a warranty coverage on it, but still, it was really frustrating for a car you just bought. And on top of that, even one of the tires went bad. Got that fixed. I was thankful that we got that covered for free. Mm-hmm. But the reality is a lot of times people, both in their cars but also in their marriage, they have these red lights, these blaring lights that are before them, and they're either hoping they're going to go away, or two, sometimes they might even try to live in bliss, like, oh well, it's just on, I'm just going to keep driving the car, as if that's okay. And so, guys, what we want to talk about are what are some of the more obvious warning lights, so to speak, in the context of marriage. And then we'll also talk about some of the not so obvious ones. So one of the more obvious ones would obviously be there's been a lot of arguing, like we've been really going at it, and there's been a lot of fighting in the context of our home, and it's not been pretty. Of course, my friends, this is a big sign that things are not good at home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's not that conflict should not be expected in the marriage, but it's how you're handling the conflict. If the conflicts are never ending in resolution, or if they're always escalating, or if each of you are each trying to get your last word in, or you're not quite able to figure out how do we resolve this tonight? That's what we're talking about in terms of arguing. And right along with that goes frustration, another warning light that could come on. If you notice that you are living in a constant state of frustration, you tend to slam the drawer shut a little bit harder, or close the door a little bit louder, or just kind of storm around the house and find yourself very, very frustrated. This is probably a warning light that you've got to do something.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a Facebook user, and until you connect with StreamYard, we can't see who it is, but
You
we're
can't tell.
so glad that you're here this evening. Yeah, so similar to that would be like if you're living and in your house and it's like suddenly we're living with this anxiety, this high stress when you're
Mm,
around your spouse, or when you're coming home, you're like nervous, like, oh, what's it going to be like tonight? Or when you're home, it's like you're walking on eggshells around each other. It
mm.
just, if you're having that antsy feeling, this is a real obvious warning sign for you in your marriage.
Yeah. Another one of the obvious warning lights could be feeling like roommates. So you
It's
two are
not the way it's supposed to
married,
be.
but
Right.
yeah, we're just kind of coming, going, ships in the night. What's the schedule? What's for dinner? Who's picking this up? Who's going to do the laundry? The dry
Mm,
cleaning, or and it's like there's no intimacy, there's no playfulness, there's no fun. We're just two people paying the bills, trying to get through the next day.
mm.
Guys, this is a big warning light. And this is one that if you ignore it and you're just kind of sticking around for the kids, as soon as the kids are gone, you're not going to have a marriage left
Right.
to stand up that'll hold up.
Right. Right.
Okay.
So now let's talk about the not so obvious ones,
Yeah.
because these are ones that we see all the time. We hear all the time. And quite honestly, we have to help people to connect the dots that this is a real warning sign in their marriage. They may not fully recognize and connect the dots. And so one of the first ones that stands out to us is it opens up the doors. If you're recognizing that in your heart, you're beginning to open the doors to temptation, and entertaining temptation, and even going down some of those roads. If you're looking to, we'll talk about coping in a second, but if you're realizing that your eyes are looking to other men, other women, and you're starting to think about, oh, what would it be like if it was that person instead of that person, or you're beginning to think, or even turn to like pornography and other things where you're trading in your wife or your husband in your mind or heart for someone or something else. And that should be, people don't necessarily recognize that, but that in itself is a real warning sign. But a similar one is also the coping part too. But if you want to add on that.
Before we go to coping, I just want to talk about that temptation
Yeah.
for a second. So it might look like you lingering by your coworker's desk a little too long, smiling, your eyes connecting a little bit longer than is appropriate.
Yeah.
Right. And it's these subtle things. It's this subtle flutter that you feel, and you're like, wait a minute, why? How come my husband doesn't look at me that way anymore? How come my wife? How come all she wants to do is tell me about the problems of the day, And so that temptation, it can start off very, very innocuous, or it's a Facebook message from an old friend, an old boyfriend, somebody you went to high school with, an old girlfriend.
Yeah.
It's that reconnection, and then somebody compliments you, and it feels good, guys. This little lingering, this temptation and cracking the door open to temptation is a significant warning light.
Yeah. And that's why 50 Shades of Grey is a hugely selling series. That's why pornography is a massively big problem. But in addition to temptation is the coping that a lot of people feel like they have to turn to, or they do turn to. And what are some of those coping things that people don't necessarily recognize as the correlation between their marriage and what they're doing?
Right. Well, maybe an obvious one would be, of course, drinking. If you're so frustrated or so disappointed or so in despair over your marriage or whatever, and you just want to numb the pain, you just want to check out. And so the drinking now also escalates the problem in the marriage. Right. And so, but it's a symptom and a problem all at once. Of course, it could be something less sinister, and that could be scrolling a little too long, wasting time on social media, comparing yourself to others, delving into inappropriate media, whether that's on the internet, whether that's in book form, magazine form, whatever. And of course, coping could be eating or shopping, spending.
So many things.
I mean, anything, any idol that really we manufacture and put up, to as a way to deal with the pain, as a way to deal with trying to numb the feelings and not deal with the feelings, can be a significant warning light.
Absolutely. And another one, this is a big one, guys, that people do not realize that this is a warning light. And that's with your kids. The kids acting up. You know, the way God designed it is that this is the vine. The kids come from the vine. They're the fruit of the marriage. And this has to be right for the kids to get the nourishment. This has to be right for them to be to getting what they need most of all. And so if the kids are lashing out, if they're acting up, if they're, not behaving well in school, their grades are crashing, these are all warning lights. Not that your kids got a problem as much as maybe things here with the marriage are not right. Now, I recognize sometimes we've had plenty of kid problems. There are a lot of dynamics at work, but a lot of times that's a warning sign. And just like another one that's very similar to that is that one where if you're recognizing in your marriage that the kids are coming first and you're focused on them and doting on them, maybe things have been tough here. So you're like, we've got to focus on the kids. That's actually counterintuitive. That's not what they need. What they need is for this to be right. And so either way, this is a warning light that's glaring in your face that's saying this is not the way things should be. Another thing, another not so obvious warning light is spiritual things have been put on the back burner. Whether that means you guys talking about spiritual things, whether that means being in God's word, whether that means you stop going to church as a family, things of this nature. When you're recognizing, well, it's been really hard for us, so now it's easier to put it in the back burner, then that's a warning light that things are not the way that they should be.
Sure. And another one would be unresolved issues. And maybe you can go into what we mean by that.
Well, there's all kinds of different types of unresolved issues. And it could be that you've had discussions about things and you've not had a chance to talk about them, or even more than that, you have talked about them and it turns into an argument. You recognize you're not on the same page about it. And by the way, people say to me all the time, well, she's just really different than me. Well, of course she is. She's a woman. You're a man. You're different, of course. But that's not the problem. Not that you're different. You have different personalities. You're two different people, of course.
Right.
That's not the problem. The problem is you guys aren't able to get on the same page about things. And it's not even, you're a mom. I'm a dad. We shouldn't see parenting issues the same way. Of course not. We're designed differently. We're wired differently. So the problem isn't that we see it differently. It's that maybe we can't get on the same page about those issues. That's a glaring red warning light that things are not the way they should be. So if you're not able to navigate some of those difficult, challenging things, parenting, finances, direction for your family, moves, whatever it would be, job decisions, those are glaring red lights too.
Yeah. And often, what we do is we look for excuses and we're like, well, this COVID is just gotten, this is a
big red light. You're right.
Yeah. I mean, this is like, it's just COVID, or we've been really sick, or my husband lost his job, or, whatever the tough thing is that you're walking through. And we don't want to minimize any tough thing that anybody's gone through, because this last year and a half has been incredibly difficult. But guys, when there's tension and stress, what it does is it just pulls the things underneath up to the surface. And then the red light can come on, right? That's the warning light.
Yeah.
And so it's not that, because how many people are handling COVID okay? They're actually stronger. They're actually closer than ever. How many people have navigated this craziness, and actually gotten more on the same page and more on the same team? There are people doing that. And so we cannot go ahead and blame these challenging things. These challenging things just basically bring the stuff underneath to the surface. And sometimes that can be a good thing, because now we've got the light. We know there's something wrong. We can do something about it. So actually the warning light can actually be a good thing.
Absolutely it can. But just to add on top of that, Rach, this is what we see a lot. This is the rubber meets the road, guys. And this is one of the big things I wanted to communicate tonight. Like, we talk to people all the time. We talk to couples, and because of the nature of things, like, they've been looking for the excuse. They've been looking for the thing that they have to blame because the marriage isn't right. And it often can look like, well, the kids have had a lot of hard things they've been going through. This has been a really tough year. We had a financial hit. We've been sick. Like we're going on and on, and there's plenty of couples that are able to navigate the challenges of this day and come through it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're looking at the problems and saying, well, that's the reason that we're not where we should be with our communication, or we're not in that place where we're loving and serving one another, and we're not on the same team, it's not the things that happen are the problem. Because if you're on the same team, it doesn't matter what you're facing. You face it together as a team, just like any sports team, win or loss. You face it as a team. And that's the problem. And this is the warning light, guys. If you're looking for all the reasons, I've had conversations time and time again, for example, with couples that have said, well, my kid's in college and he's like turning away from the faith, and my daughter, she's like turning this way and she's rejecting God, and these are the real problems in our marriage. I'm like, no, these are the warning lights that there are significant underlying problems. The problem is not your kids. The problem is the two of you and the arguing and the fighting, and that you're not on the same team, and your kids see it and feel it. And where are they to go? They're uneasy by it. They're going down these paths because you've been professing a faith, and have you been living it out in the context of your marriage? If you haven't, why would they follow the faith you profess? So guys, we're here to say there's a lot of different types of warning lights. We've only hit on a few of them. The obvious ones, the not so obvious ones, there's plenty of them. And we're here to say when we see those, we don't go, la, 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 I don't see anything. There's nothing there, nothing to look at. Like, we don't ignore it. You don't ignore the sounds that are coming from the back of the car. Like, no, you realize these are things that need to get fixed. And so, guys, what we want to say is it's time to pay attention to the warning lights.
Absolutely. It's not time to just click your little thing in there and disconnect the wire so that the lights don't come on, right? And just cover it up, because the problem doesn't go away. So haven't you been known to plug your little thing in?
Yeah, that's true. That's a great point. So even the stupid car, like the light came on again today after I got it fixed, or yesterday.
Okay.
I was like, oh my gosh, how freaking annoying. So what I did, plugged in the OBD sensor. Like, I'm like, I'm kind of a handy guy. I like to fix things, but I'm like, I'm plugging it in. I kind of know it's wrong. And sure enough, it's the thing that's wrong. And I'm like, okay, at least I know what the red light means. Actually, it's multiple lights. And I'm like, oh, there, yeah, 3 lights. This is what it means. I know exactly where it is. I know exactly what it means. I know it's wrong, but I don't know how to fix that. Well, at least I'm really smart and I can plug in the sensor. Now I know it's wrong. That's great that I know. But I even realized that in that moment, guys, that I'm going to bring it in to get fixed. I'm sure if my life depended on it, I could figure it out, but I don't have the time, energy, or expertise to do that. You know? And so, guys, what we would want to say to you is you have got to prioritize your marriage. If there are warning lights, you have got to get this fixed. And if that means that the two of you need to get to prioritize to the time together, means date nights. I mean, these are all helpful things, but you might realize, oh my goodness, like a lot of us, when those warning lights are going off, I don't know how to fix that. I know kind of maybe what's wrong, but I don't know the first thing about fixing that problem. And that can be a lot of times for a lot of couples. And so, guys, what we want to encourage you to do is to reach out and connect with our free masterclass that we give, because we have a way of helping you guys to think about things maybe differently than you have thus far.
Yes. We've created a webinar called The 5 Simple Shifts Christian Couples Use to Completely Turn Their Marriage Around Quickly, Recover Intimacy, and Fall Back in Love Again. And what we have found is these 5 shifts are the ones that the couples that in the past that we've been able to help, and even now, they've been able to make these shifts, these 5 shifts. And because we noticed that when we were helping, Scott has pastored for 20 years. He worked in hospice chaplaincy, and we've been helping couples for the last 2 years. But all through that time, we've done family ministry, we've done godly biblical counseling and that kind of thing. And throughout all of that, we have seen the ones who fix their marriage make these shifts. So we noticed that. So we put together that webinar for you. It's free, and we hope that you check it out. You're going to go to turnaroundmarriage.com/class and check that out. And we hope that brings some help.
Yeah.
So, So anyway, it's really good to see everybody on. And Yeah, if you've got the warning lights, guys, let's not just close our eyes and ignore it.
Absolutely.
Let's take the car in and get it fixed, and let's get the marriage fixed too.
And absolutely, guys. And I just want to say, if there can be plenty of other warning lights too. I mean, one of them might be if your wife is reacting and seems like she's angry, if your husband seems like he's on edge and doesn't seem like he wants to be, like, doesn't want to be around you, like all of these things, it means that there's a problem that needs to be fixed. It doesn't mean that they don't love you. It doesn't, it can mean a lot of things of what it could possibly mean. But the heart of it is this, guys. God designed marriage to be such a wonderful blessing. And cars are a wonderful blessing to get from A to B. I'm glad I don't have to walk, a lot of places. They are a blessing, but when the warning lights come on, we need to get things fixed. So guys, we hope that encourages you in your marriage journey, and we wish you guys lots of love and prayers, and hope you have a great rest of your evening.
Yeah. Catch you next time.
Good night.